and welcome to the Economy This Week series of Drishti IAS. I am Ritu and today's session is about important economic events which had happened in the past week, and this session is important for your GES 3 perspective. Moving towards the points of discussion part. So first of all, we are going to discuss about the income inequality, then we are going to discuss about FDI in India, then we are going to discuss about PLI schemes, and then service sector growth in India. So we already know that this session is very important for your GS 3 economy perspective. Moving towards to the points, first we have to know the address of the Noida. So this is our new address, C171/2 Block A, Sector 15, Noida, and nearest metro station is Noida Sector 15. And admissions are open in both the mediums, English medium and Hindi medium. If you want to know more information about the ISGS foundation course or anything related to Drishti IAS, you can call on to the number 87501 So coming to the news part, so the first news is about income inequality. So 2023 income inequality exceeded 1950s levels in India, says report. So this is a very shocking news that in 1950s India got just independence, and right now what we can see that we had passed the 7 decades, but still our income inequality is worse than 1950s. This is a matter of thought. So here we are going to discuss that what data shows. So India's income inequality in 2023 remained higher than it was in 1950s despite improvements seen in the aftermath of the pandemic. And who has says this? So this there is a working paper which is being released by People Research on India's consumer economy and in short price. So with the price we got to know about the India's income inequality, and they had talked about the Gini coefficient, and according to them the country stood at 0.410 in 2023 and 0.37 in 1955. So here we can see that how much Gini coefficient is high, and we'll also discuss that what is Gini coefficient mean. And earlier in 2021, due to the adverse impact of the pandemic, it was 0.528. But we have to reduce these things because in 1955 it was 0.371, but it has increased. So first of all we should know that what all these data mean. So here we'll discuss about the Gini coefficient. So it measures the income inequality in which 0 indicates the perfect equality and 1 indicates the perfect inequality. So it means that if we are moving more than 0, it means that inequality is rising. And here we can see that since 1955 we can see that the data shows the higher trend. It means the inequality had rose. So I will discuss about the rural Guinea. So it has increased from 0.405 2023 from 0.31 1955. In urban Guinea it has declined, so it has slightly declined if we compare to the data of 1955. So it is 0.382 to 0.392. So we have to reduce and we have to come to this point so that there can be equality. So if we'll talk about the income distribution, so what we have got about an information that bottom 10% share of household income declined to 2.38% from 3%. So in 1955 it was 3%, but it has declined around 2.38%. Then bottom 50%, there was a slight increase because of the various policies. So their share has increased 22.82% to from 22%. And here we have made this comparison from 1955. And social welfare programs, example MG Narega and direct benefit transfers contributed to the improved income share of the bottom 50%. So here we can see that there is a slight increase. So because of the policies, because of the welfare programs. So here we'll discuss more about it. So what it discuss, so World Inequality Database shows that top 1% control the 22.6% of the national income, and income surveys top 1% control only 7.3 of the informal economy. So what it shows that most of the top 1% has control over the formal economy. Then challenges and recommendations. So if we want to reduce here we can see that how it has declined. So this is a 2023. Here we can see that we are on the top, but it has declined, and this is not a good sign for the economy, because we are comparing this data since 1955, and what we have seen that we have not progressed because our data in terms of income inequality is worse than 1955, which is a matter of thought, which is a matter of worry. So challenges and recommendation is that we have to make our economy more inclusive, and here we can see that top 1% are consisting 22% of the whole world wealth, and India income gap is very much high, and we have to invest into the infrastructure, progressive taxation, and crucial for equitable growth. And India's economic inequality shows a seesaw pattern. Sometimes it rose, sometimes it down, and post-pandemic improvements are promising, but it requires a revisit, and we have to redesign our policies so that we can improve this data in terms of the Gini coefficient. Now we'll discuss the next one, which is about the FDI in India, and this is the news. FDI in India growing rapidly. Piyush Goyal has said this thing. So in the comment section, you have to tell me that who is Piyush Goyal. So here, first of all, before moving to any data related to the FDI, we should know that what is FDI. So foreign direct investment, this is the full form of FDI. So what happens that investment made by a foreign entity. So suppose that there are two nations, one nation is A and another nation is B. So A is making investment into the B in terms of the education, in terms of the commerce industry, or in any industry, it is investing into the B. So why they are investing? In order to have control over the prices, in order to have a control over the business and their interest. So this is the B country, and A is investing into the B country. So a foreign entity invest into any sector of another country is called as foreign direct investments. So this is typically done with the intention of establishing a lasting interest and a degree of control over the business. So this is the purpose of the FDI. And what are the types of FDI we have? So we have greenfield investment. So greenfield investment is that suppose that any country or any other entity is investing into another country. So in greenfield, they are investing from scratch. It means they are investing in a new project, they are establishing a new project. On the other hand, brownfield investment is that suppose that any company or any sector is there or any entity is there and they are contributing to it and they are more adding to it. So that is called the brownfield investment. And what are the routes in India for the FDI we have? So one is the automatic route. So in this, no government approval required, and another is approval route. So there are few areas in terms of defense, in terms of media, telecom, we need approval from the government. So these are the areas and these are the basic thing about the foreign direct investment. Now we'll discuss that what is the news related to it. So Piyush Goyal has said that India has seen the growth in FDI. So which kind of growth it has seen? India's FDI inflows surged by 42% to $42.13 billion, and this is data of January to September 2024 compared to $29.73 billion a year ago. So here we can see that there is almost 15% of $15 increase into this, of $15 billion increase into this. And then April September 2024-25 inflows it grew by 45% to $29.79 billion. So here we can see that it has grew by 45%. Total FDI in 2023-2024 reached to $71.28 billion, and monthly FDI inflows average over the $4.5 billion in 2024. And this data is promising despite of having a very global uncertainties, because many countries are indulged into war, but still we are showing a positive growth into this. And key contributors, so major investors are Middle Eastern countries, Japan, European Union countries, then US. So these are the countries who are majorly investing into the India, and sectors attracting maximum. So service sector has attracted a lot, then IT, then telecom, trading, construction, automobiles, chemicals and pharmaceuticals. So this is the current scenario of FDI growth in India. So what it shows, so it shows that Piyush Goyal has pointed that why so many foreign direct investors are investing in India, because we have advantage over the workforce, and according to Piyush Goyal we have a skilled workforce, so that's why it is attracted, and strong domestic market we have, and there is a stable regulatory framework by the government, so that's why more foreign entities are interested into India, and we have progressive policies, and ease of doing business is very much attractive here, and investors confidence. So US fund CEO praised India's returns over the past decade and announced further investment, and India's stock market has not seen much what you can say ups and downs in comparison to other countries, so its performance is attracting, and importance of FDI. So why FDI is important for any country? Because it improves the infrastructure, and it is very crucial for the infrastructure and economic growth and job creation. So that's why if more company will establish into India, if they will start investing more into the telecom sector or defense sector or any sector, so there are more chances for the job creation, so that locals will get job for this. So coming to the next one is about the PLI scheme, and this is the news related to the PLI scheme. India introduces new steel PLI scheme with rupees 4300 crore outlay. So what is the PLI scheme? So this is the what you can say production linked incentive scheme, and this is for this is an initiative by Government of India in which they are going to focus on various key sectors like automobiles, export sectors, and it is an initiative to boost all those sectors. And this is like India is dependent on few products for other countries, and India imports all those products. So with this scheme, it is an aim that we should reduce the import, and we should make production at this level so that we can export to the other countries also. So this is about, so Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India has implemented production linked incentive scheme, and here they had focused on the solar PV manufacturers. So they had focused on the renewable energy, because India is a country which has a huge resource of the solar energy. So they had invested, and they had planned that how to improve our and how to utilize our solar resources. So this is that. Then here what are the aims and objectives? So aims and objective to improve and to build an ecosystem for manufacturing, and here we have to set up a environment, and we have to give a what you can say composite thing for the development of renewable energy. Then here we'll specifically talking about the solar energy and solar resource, so solar PV manufacturing to bring cutting edge technology for India, and also sourcing of local materials in solar manufacturing, and this is applicable to other sectors also. So in order to boost our manufacturing sector, in order to boost our technological sector, so that we could not technologically dependent on other countries, and we can try the different kind of technology for the development and growth. So that's why this is its main aim. Now here we'll discuss that what the data says. So here we can see that revised production linked incentive scheme for the steel sector has an outlay of approximately 4300 crore rupees, and it focuses on boosting the production of specialty steel and electrical steels, and this is a revised scheme introduced after consultation with the industry stakeholders, and aims to improve the performance and participation of companies in steel production. So this is about the initial scheme faced challenges in achieving expected outcomes, especially for the specialty steel. So here you have to know the whole conclusion of this PLI scheme, that this is for the countries need in which we are heavily dependent on imports. In order to reduce our dependence on the imports, this particular scheme has been launched, and it is also that India will not be dependent on any kind of resources for other countries, and here with this scheme India will become facilitator for the other countries, and in different sectors they are working. So we had seen an example of solar energy, that how the government is boosting the solar energy and utilizing our solar resources. Here we can see that we are focusing on the steel industry. So these are the examples of the PLI schemes. Then we'll come to the India's service sector. So this is the news that India's service sector ended 2024 on a strong footing, PMI shows. So Purchasing Managers Index shows. So before moving to any discussion part, this is a brief introduction. We already had covered the primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector, but this is a brief introduction of the economic sectors and their interconnected roles. So primary sector involves extraction and harvesting of natural resources, farming. Then secondary sector focuses on the manufacturing and industrial activities. Then we have tertiary sector, which has a more of service sector, provides services facilitating trade and communication. Then we have quaternary sector, knowledge based activities like research and development, information and technology. Then we have also quinary sectors, high level decision making and policy roles. So mainly people focuses on these primary, secondary and tertiary sector. So this is a brief introduction about the different economic sectors. Now will come that what is the news related to this. So India's service sector ends 2024 on a high note. So what the data shows? So the HSBC India Service Purchasing Manager Index rose to 59.3 in December from 58.4 in November, marking a 4-month high. And the sector has been expanding for over 3 years, supported by strong domestic and global demand. So why we can see a rise in service sector? So because this time we can see that at the end of 2024, service sector has provided more jobs to the people and more hiring happened to this sector, and there is a environment of business optimism, and that was the reason we can see that this positive result in the December. Then employment workers at one of the strongest paces since 2005. So recently we had seen that we had got this news that hiring was closed into various sectors, but since 2005 we can see that there was a high pace of the hiring of the workers. And we have also seen that inflationary pressure. So input price inflation eased from November 15-month high but remained elevated. And overall economic impact, we could see the service sector growth helped offset a slowdown in manufacturing, boosting the composite PMI. And what would be the outlook for this? So outlook for this is that it indicates that there is a continued strong performance in near term, supported by easing inflation and solid demand. So here you have to understand that first of all we can see the growth in the service sector, and growth in the service sector indicates that hiring happened, then the inflationary pressure eased, then there was an environment of ease of doing business optimism was there. So these are the very positive signs for the service sector, and we can see the positive growth in the service sector. Now we'll come to the question discussion part. So what is one of the key benefits of increasing FDI inflows in India? Here we are talking about the foreign direct investments, decreased domestic investment, creation of millions of jobs, reduction in trade deficit, decline in industrial growth. This is very easy one, you can answer into the comment section. Then we can come to the next one. What was the key factor driving the strong performance of the service sector in 2024? Decline in global demand, robust hiring and expanded capacities, reduced domestic consumption, decrease in business optimism. So you have to answer this also. Then we'll come to the next one. Which of the following statement about the Gini coefficient is are correct? A Gini coefficient of 0 represent perfect equality, while a value of 1 represent perfect inequality. It is used to measure income or wealth distribution within a country or region. A decrease in the Gini coefficient indicates increased income inequality. Here are the option 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, 1, 2 and 3. So you have to answer into the comment section. Then we'll come to the next one. The next one is about which of the following is an objective of PLI scheme for high efficiency solar PV modules in India? Increase import dependencies, promote advanced manufacturing technology, restrict the use of local materials, limit employment generation. So you have to answer this into the comment section. And these all topics are very much important for your mains perspective. You have to focus. Suppose that in mains they can ask question like this, that how PLI schemes are making an environment of ease of doing business in this country. then this one would be a nice question for your mains. Then we have one that service sector is growing and we can see the positive signs in the service sector, but what happens into the secondary sectors and primary sectors? So is it a good sign for economy? So these are the rough question I have made. They will ask in a more systematic manner, but you have to think on this line that okay, one sector is growing, we are very happy for that sector, but what about the other sectors? So for a composite growth of an economy, we need all sectors to grow proportionately, because it is the primary and secondary sector which has a highest number of population and highest number of workforce. So if these sectors are not growing, it means that overall the economy is not working into a good condition. So we have to also think about the FDI, that we are attracting a lot of FDI. Is it good for the economy or not? So these are the probable mains questions you have. So you can practice at your home. I hope you like this session. If you have any queries related to this session, kindly ask into the comment section. Thank you. Have a nice day.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.